Welcome to another edition of India Sense. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi, and the next 30 minutes is your weekly dose of all that matters to the global India. But first up, the headlines. Prime Minister Modi speaks with Tesla boss Elon Musk. The call comes after a meeting between the two regarding possible areas of tech collaboration. Does this pave the way for Starlink's and Tesla's imminent entry into India? As Bangladesh and China cozy up and normalize ties, is this the new two-front war that India needs to now prepare for? And as China's presence in Dhaka and Islamabad continues to grow, how will New Delhi's strategic calculus change? We decode. US Vice President J.D. Vance is all set to be in India for a 3-day visit where he will meet Prime Minister Modi on the first day. The visit is expected to set the tone for greater tech and trade collaboration between India and the US. A visit so early in the administration could prove to be very fruitful in greater alignment on common strategic concerns of the two countries. From students to tech experts, why are the visas drying up for highly qualified top talent? And as fears mount of petty past offences being grounds for visa cancellations, we ask, has the American dream all but ended? The Times 100 most influential list is out with not a single Indian named. A billion voices get snubbed. Names like Mohammad Yunus do find mention. Our big story this week on India Sense. Well, an electric future, a celestial network, and a billion voices waiting to connect. Today, a high-stakes conversation between two global disruptors, Prime Minister Modi and Elon Musk, took place. Could that redefine the future of innovation, mobility, and space in India? Well, behind the headlines, this is the second conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Elon Musk in as many months, indicating the seriousness of intent on both sides. Both of Musk's major companies, that is Tesla and Starlink, are keen on a major India play. And New Delhi wants to be at the center of a global innovation and manufacturing revolution. For Starlink, Musk's satellite internet giant that's poised to boost India's digital growth, spectrum allocation and national security clearances are immediate roadblocks that need to be addressed. On Starlink, the Commerce Minister, in fact, met with the company's leadership only yesterday, as Indian telecom majors Jio and Airtel look to lock their own satellite deals. Remember, the space race is heating up. India wants to be a major player in it. Starlink has about 6,700 satellites already in orbit. How will this marry into India's space ambitions is the key question. Now, back on Earth, Tesla is quietly gearing to roll the redefined Model Y in India, hinting at imminent market entry. With dealerships planned, hiring underway, the electric giant is coming soon. Viewers, from space to streets, the Modi-Musk discussion, first that took place in February and today, signals many possibilities of satellites above and EVs below, where India might just become the next frontier of innovation. The phone call comes ahead of US Vice President J.D. Vance's first visit to India. US-China trade war, remember, opens up a lot of opportunities for India when it comes to trade, including fast-tracking a bilateral trade deal, the first phase of which could actually come as early as third quarter of this year. And it will, of course, the meeting between J.D. Vance and Prime Minister Modi, likely to take place on the 21st, could cover a lot of ground when it comes to shared strategic concerns. Tech, trade, and territory, viewers. In a world increasingly divided by data and diplomacy, Modi's phone call to Musk isn't just about cars or satellites. Well, it is about the future, which is most likely to run through India. All right. The first wide-angle story on the show, India's neighborhood has been tense. It has always been so, in fact. On several times in the past, it's even been hostile. Right now, viewers, there are tensions that are simmering on more than one border. Ever since Bangladesh ousted Sheikh Hasina, the democratic downslide in Dhaka and the mainstreaming of Islamist radicals, along with the growing anti-India sentiment, has pretty much created ripe conditions for normalizing of ties with Pakistan, something that hadn't happened for 15 years. Now Islamabad and Dhaka are looking to build ties, from defense to trade. How wide-ranging could this possible partnership be? And why this could be the new two-front war that India needs to prepare for? This report has all the answers for you. After 15 years of cold silence, Pakistan and Bangladesh are back at the table. This time possibly with China playing silent partner. Pakistan's overtures to Dhaka aren't just olive branches, but calculated moves to build an anti-India nexus. From the embers of 1971's bloody birth, ties have now thawed, quietly, carefully, and now conspicuously. Bangladesh's interim regime, led by Mohammad Yunus, has shown China the welcome mat while giving India the cold shoulder. The message was loud and clear. The northeast is landlocked and Bangladesh the only key. A dagger pointed at the Siliguri corridor and India's sovereignty. Add China's warships prowling the Bay of Bengal and possible intelligence pacts between Islamabad and Dhaka, and the threat morphs from possible to probable. The ISI's footprints in university radicalization, China's eyes on the Teesta, and Dhaka's provocations are not isolated instances. They are coordinated pressure points. The dragon, the dagger, and the double game. India is no stranger to confrontation, but the present geopolitical landscape will require New Delhi to think out of the box with deft diplomacy. Viewers, the two-front war that New Delhi has been fully prepared for till now has been the China-Pakistan nexus. But the Bangladesh-Pakistan growing bonhomie changes some of these dynamics, because Beijing is wanting to fill the vacuum in Bangladesh, take advantage of its economic mess and the growing instability, just like it did in Pakistan. Infrastructure projects are never just that. They are means to a larger strategic geopolitical scheme. For India, this means a complete realignment of its calculus. Even when New Delhi responds to Beijing's positive overtures on trade, it needs to be more than just careful. It needs to be very. Is this how the American dream ends? Well, viewers, from college campuses to corporate boardrooms, Indian students and techies in the US are watching their futures unravel. Visa calculations, cancellations, job losses, and legal limbo have sparked panic. And for many, it's a ticking clock with no clear answers. Our special report uncovers the fear, the uncertainty, and the fight for survival in what is turning out to now be an increasingly hostile landscape. They came chasing the American dream. But now for thousands of Indian students and tech professionals, it's turning into a nightmare. From the classroom to the courtroom, more than 1,000 international students have seen their visas vanish without a trace, like pulling the rug out from under their futures. Universities across 40 states are scrambling, left in the dark by the federal government's sudden and unexplained status terminations.
International students are really scared. They've been talking to us faculty almost a daily basis. They're constantly worried, they're constantly fearful. They don't know if they could be deported. There's been no due process. Students have been whisked away with no cause, no sort of process or procedure.
For Indian student Chinmay Gaurie, it wasn't just a glitch, it was a potential one-way ticket home. He and others are now suing the Trump administration, alleging ICE revoked their status without any reason. warning of arrest and deportation. As lawsuits pile up, fear spreads faster than wildfire. Even the Indian government has stepped in, scrambling to offer a safety net. But for many, the damage may already be done. Meanwhile, it's a bloodbath on the job front. Indian techies on H-1Bs are caught between a rock and a hard place as layoffs sweep the industry. Posts on social media read like digital SOS signals. Liberation Day layoffs. That's what techies are calling the purge, as giants like Microsoft and Google cut thousands. Startups are folding, contracts are drying up, and Indians who received over 72% of H-1Bs last year are bearing the brunt. Even the lucky ones still in jobs are feeling the squeeze. Delayed raises, hiring freezes, and discrimination claims against firms like TCS are deepening the gloom. The road to Silicon Valley now has potholes of policy, politics, and prejudice. As the American dream flickers, Indian students and techies ask a question no visa can answer. Was it all worth it? From denied dreams to digital despair, the fallout is still unfolding. As lawsuits brew and livelihoods hang by a thread, one thing is clear. The promise of the US is now under strain. And for many Indians in America, the land of opportunity now feels more like a land of obstacles. But remember, this is not a one-way street. Indian students play a major role in keeping US universities viable and profitable. Likewise, Indian techies power up the American economy. There are 39 Indian-American CEOs in a country which ranks 24 out of 37 OECD countries in science, tech, and engineering. America needs this talent, but this attitude is more self-destructive than ever before. All right, viewers, on that note, we slip into a break. We come back on the other side. The top voice, Dexter Roberts, joining me from Atlantic Council to decode what the US-China trade war means for India and how New Delhi can make the most of this opportunity. More on that after this break. Stay with me. All right, top voice on the show this week, Dexter Roberts, non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Global China Hub, to talk about the US-China trade tensions and how should the world be bracing for it. Mr. Roberts, thanks so much for joining me on India Sense. Let me start by asking you, how do you see these tariffs layered on top of tariffs by both sides, the trade war between US and China only escalating in the last 1 week?
Well, I think we're now at a point where the tariffs have reached a level on both sides that pretty much bring most trade between the two countries to a halt. And this, of course, has implications not just for the US and for China, but for countries including India around the world. Obviously, China is a key link in global technology and other supply chains. It's also the world's second largest economy, and it's been an important driver for global economic growth as well. China's already facing a slowing economy. The trade war is certain to bring growth down there. Yes. And similarly, we've seen this economic chaos almost in the US with the very high tariffs reflected in stock markets, and eventually, I think, starting to be seen in the job market as well.
Yes. Okay. But in terms of the impact on global trade, if you could just decode that for our viewers in simple terms, because you're talking about the largest and the second largest economy pretty much now coming to a standstill in terms of their bilateral trade.
Well, I think it's hard to, it's hard to exaggerate how serious it is. This would have a real substantial blow to the global economy. Again, China plays this key role, particularly in technology supply chains, so that many of the products that around the world that are bought in one way or another come through the China global supply chain. Again, the economic impact of having two such important economies, as you say, number one and number two, see a downturn, more of a downturn, is something that really affects everyone around the world.
You mentioned tech supply chains. The NVIDIA CEO was in China at a time when global tech supply chains are likely to be hit. How do you see the technology landscape changing, whether it is semiconductors or whether it's any other high-end tech value chain?
Well, I think one very likely impact is higher prices for all of us. China has created a really admirable environment, if you will, for global supply chains. The logistics systems are in place. The labor, by and large, is there. It's lower cost. Moving that somewhere else in the world, which sort of has to happen if this trade war continues, is going to bring up costs for everyone. And it's not going to be a smooth process either. The technology supply chains that have been built up in China have happened over years and years. And it's not a simple matter of just picking them up and moving them either to a neighboring country or to the United States, which frankly is less likely because of the costs there.
Mr. Roberts, this is India Sense, where we always talk about what is it that will take India to be a superpower. I want to ask you, how can we make, or India make, the best possible use of this trade opportunity where we are in a better position, we have lower tariffs, and there are trade deals that are on the anvil? How do you see India making the most of this situation?
Well, obviously, India has already been a beneficiary to a degree of efforts to diversify the global supply chain out of India. We've seen big brands like Apple and others encourage their, or even put pressure on their suppliers to try to move outside of China, and often India has been a location for that. India, if it continues to keep tariffs low, given also the very, very large size of the Indian market and the potential there, it's quite a natural next step for companies as they diversify away from China.
And outside of the tech domain, what about some of the other sectors where you think we are best primed to possibly make use of these trade tensions?
Well, obviously, the pharmaceutical sector in India has done very well. That's another area. Really, you can look across the board. I mean, India still does have quite relatively, quite low costs. I think many industries could step forward and potentially benefit from this effort to diversify away from the world's reliance on China.
All right, let's leave it there. Mr. Dexter Roberts, thank you so much for joining me live on what could the implications be of the US-China trade war for India in terms of opportunities that it throws up. Thank you so much. All right, turning focus now. Turning focus now to the first inside story on the show. Advanced voting, viewers, for Canada elections opens Friday after Prime Minister Carney announced a snap poll just weeks after coming to power. This is the first election in a decade where there's no Trudeau who's on the ticket, and it happening after his disgraced exit from the party earlier this year. Well, with him going, the Liberal Party's prospects have actually increased since then. With just a week left for the elections, listen in to what Prime Minister Mark Carney had to say, really setting the tone for the last lap of the election campaign.
The relationship we had with the Americans, these guys weren't wrong. They want us to be the 51st state. They want to break us. They want to break us so they can own us.
So the second and final election debate in English saw some very sharp one-liners from the primary candidates, but it was largely a very lackluster debate. At least there weren't any fireworks that Indians are used to. It was even pushed around to give prime-time TV viewing to a hockey match. That just tells you how Canadians view their priorities. But there's one thing that it did show. It showed that the road to victory in Ottawa now passes through Washington, as the Trump factor weighs heavily in who the Canadians will choose as their next leader to steer the country at a time of great political as well as economic uncertainty. And this is getting reflected in the messaging of the two primary candidates, the Liberal leader Mark Carney and the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. While Carney's messaging has been largely focused on fear of Donald Trump, fear of his threats of annexation, fear of his more trade wars, PM's messaging has been completely opposite. It's been a lot about hope of an economy that could do well if taxes are brought down, if cost of living expenses are brought down, and so on and so forth. Where does immigration fit into both of this is anybody's guess. But the Canadian election result may or may not, viewers, be a referendum on Donald Trump. But it's turning out to be an election where neither party seems to have answers or a broader roadmap. Canadians are looking for not just answers, they are looking for a vision. Whether they get that from any of these two leaders remains to be seen, and only time will tell whether that will provide Canada and Canadians the answer that they are really looking for and the voice that they are hoping to achieve. It's the Worldview segment on the show. First up, Dhaka's finger-pointing has triggered a diplomatic storm. Bangladesh has rattled by its own record of over 2,400 attacks on minorities this year alone, dares to lecture India on communal harmony. Their statement on West Bengal, a localized eruption amidst deep constitutional protests, is unwarranted. It was opportunistic, and India gave a response that was befitting, unflinching, a reminder that, and not just a retort, which was that focus on your own backyard. While Bangladesh warns of Muslim minorities in India, a secular democracy where due process is the rule, the world watches temples razed, Hindus displaced, and justice delayed across the border. The bottom line is, Bangladesh, before you preach, protect. Because in matters of minority rights, silence is complicity, and so is hypocrisy. This is not geopolitics, this is accountability. When justice is muzzled and truth is trampled, you call it anything but law. Tonight, we rip the mask off Pakistan's sham justice, a system that makes a mockery of international law and by now its own admission buries basic human rights 6 feet under. Kulbhushan Jadhav, an Indian citizen who was illegally detained by Pakistan from Iran in 2016, sentenced to death in a kangaroo court. Pakistan's full story has finally come out. Of course, it's full of holes like a fishing net. And now, under oath, Pakistan's Defense Ministry has spilled the truth to its Supreme Court, saying that Kulbhushan Jadhav was never given the right to appeal. Let that sink in, viewers. The ICJ ordered consular access, but what good is access if the door to justice is bolted shut? Now, Pakistan, well, later on passed a law in 2021, too little, too late, a bandage on a bullet wound. And even that law is twisted to fit their convenience. A legal window dressing that is nothing but covering up for a miscarriage of justice, so grotesque it echoes in every diplomatic hall and courtroom around the world. Remember, Kulbhushan Jadhav is not just a name, he's a symbol of how far one nation can go to rewrite reality. Pakistan plays judge, jury, and executioner as the world watches. But remember, India will not forget, and India will not be silent. Harvard, once the crown jewel of American academia, is now caught in the eye of a political firestorm. The Department of Homeland Security has thrown down the gauntlet, demanding a sweeping data dump on international students, or else, who knows? The warning is crystal clear that you must comply or watch your visa privileges, your grants, and your reputation go up in smoke. Secretary Kristi Noem isn't mincing words when she accused Harvard of turning a blind eye to anti-Semitism, harboring radical ideology, and letting extremism fester on its watch. The message, loud and clear, the days of ivory tower immunity are now over. Billions of dollars in grants are now frozen. Foreign students are under the microscope, and the school's tax-exempt status is on the chopping block. This isn't just a slap on the wrist, it's a political earthquake shaking the very foundations of academic freedom. Harvard, for its part, says it won't flinch. But in this high-stakes showdown, one thing's clear. When politics walks the front door, independence is the first thing to slip out the back. In the shadows of American history, truth isn't just stranger than fiction. It, in fact, outwits it. From remote-controlled dogs to Happy Days, sex tape, blackmail. These aren't Bond films, they're real CIA ops. A G.I. Joe turned demon toy designed to haunt the children of the Middle East. Well, there's also mind control that made people kill and then forget. There was a fake sex tape that was meant to destroy a president who loved it so much that he tried to make it a blockbuster. There are even remote-controlled dogs in the name of science. Because why not? Psychs, aliens, and spoon benders. Yes, the CIA tried it all. Millions were spent. But the results, well, viewers, are still classified. If these are the unclassified files, what secrets will come out remains to be seen. One can safely say the CIA is where the reality is redacted and history wears a wire. And Time magazine has dropped its 2025 list of the 100 most influential people, and not a single Indian citizen made the cut, not one. India, the world's most populous democracy, tech superpower, cultural juggernaut, and a rising global voice. It doesn't need a Time list to be influential, but it's reflective of the bias that the magazine has against India. But guess who did make it to the list? Mohammad Yunus, the interim advisor to Bangladesh government, currently facing backlash and controversy. Last year, there were names like Alia Bhatt and Sakshi Malik, icons in art and activism. But this year, there is complete silence. We ask, is this oversight or is it outright erasure? Time says it honors those who shape the world, but India is shaping the century, from Chandrayaan to Chandni Chowk, and yet it's silence and it's sidelined. Let's call a spade a spade. This isn't just a statement. This is about snubbing a billion voices. It's not a miss. It could even be termed as a mockery. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Sense. Thanks so very much for watching.